I don't think this offensive coordinator position is as attractive as we want it to be. And I wish it was, and I wish this was the job everyone was fighting over and tripping over each other to get. But I really don't feel it. I think we, as a fan base, have an inflated sense of how great this job is and have an inflated sense of who's going to want to come here and grab this job. Let's go over some things that I think are close to fact, in my opinion, but I think pretty close to accurate, just a reasoning of what's going on here. We have a quarterback that right now does not look like one of the best in the NFL. I'm not saying he's terrible. I'm not saying you can't win with him. They've won with him. But this past season played, in my opinion, closer to mediocre than great. So you have a quarterback that fits somewhere in the middle of the pack among current starting quarterbacks in the NFL. A running back that took a step backwards off of a huge workload the year before.
Huge workload.
And is approaching the age of 30. An offensive line that was phenomenal for years and last year was not due to mostly injury. And then I have a right tackle who's getting close to the end, and they have no ready replacement. I have a wide receiver who, according to one report, asked for a trade multiple times during the season. So I don't even know if A.J. Brown's going to be here. That's the offense. I have a head coach here who probably is on the hot seat again. So if I come take this job and it doesn't work out, I'm out of a job again. And we know a lot of these coordinators are young-ish kind of coaches, right? And they're typically in that age where they may have families and kids, or they want to run up to Philadelphia to live for 1 year and then might be out. So I know you could look at this and say, Joe, come on. Kellen Moore became a head coach, and Shane Steichen became a head coach. And that's true. But also Brian Johnson was fired, and Kevin Patullo was fired in 1 year. I don't think this job is as attractive as we think it is, and I think so far the search is showing us that. I mean, the top names are not running here. In fact, we're getting guys that were just fired or nobody wanted. Hugh, how do you look at this? Because this is a huge moment for the franchise, trying to get the next OC. Do you think this job is attractive?
I think it's an attractive job, but I think what's happening is this. Because I've heard some of the names that were mentioned. I saw Mike McDaniels in the airport in Baltimore with his nice suit on, his nice checkered suit on. And I also think back on some of the stuff that I've heard about this organization in the past, as far as, people coming here and kind of having to fall into lockstep with what the Eagles want to do. Now, there's been a report that, everything is carte blanche. It's going to be whatever the offensive coordinator wants to do and things of that nature. But when I look at some of the names that we've talked about, the familiar names that we talked about at OC, the guys that have had the jobs, the Kingsburys, the McDaniels, the Dables and stuff like that, the guys that we've talked about and the guys that interviewed, they don't match up, right? So that tells me that there might be some truth to the rumor that the Eagles want to be, they just want somebody out in front. And they want to actually run the organization, which, when you look at the success that they had, might not be a bad thing. I mean, you talk about 2 Super Bowl appearances in the last 5 years, been in the playoffs every year. That's not a bad spot to be in my opinion. But some of these guys that you're talking about, they might not want to sign up for that.
Well, and they might not think the job and the players are as great as we do. I mean, we have a perception that the Eagles' offense is the most loaded in the NFL. And at one point, maybe within the last couple of years, it felt like that, right? Like at their best, their top level 2 years ago, 2024 season, it was great. I mean, yes, but is there a real chance here the quarterback is in decline? I think so. Is there a chance the running back's best days are past him? Probably. Is there a chance A.J. Brown's not going to be here? I think there's a very good chance that happens. So if I'm an offensive coordinator candidate, I'm like, wait a second. I've got a running back that's probably never going to be what he was a couple of years ago. A quarterback that, I mean, I could maybe make him better, but how good is he? A wide receiver who probably wants out, and maybe the franchise is going to move on. So what are the definites here on this offense? Devontae Smith feels like a definite. I kind of know what he is next year. Jordan Mailata feels like he's entrenched for a while. And I want to say that, Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson are definites, but they just had surgeries and they weren't the same.
You feel we aging out that quick?
Well, I just feel like if I'm a coordinator candidate and I got the 16 offensive coordinator jobs are open in the NFL. Think about that for a second. 16, right? Like between the head coach changes and then the offensive coordinator changes with coaches that kept their jobs. 16 teams could have new coordinators. A year ago, 2 years ago, you would have said everyone's running to Philadelphia. I don't know, man. I'm looking at this, and then with that, I saw this morning from our guy Marcus Hayes, who wrote this in his column. Ready for this? Quote, League sources say the Eagles have not yet convinced McDaniel to interview, which offers a glimpse in how he considers the Philly job. Just think about that sentence for a second. That the Eagles have not, according to Marcus Hayes, have not yet convinced Mike McDaniel to interview. I mean, Hugh, it's one thing to convince him to take the job, right? That's a lot that goes in that money and all that. But they haven't convinced him to sit down for an interview. That feels telling to me. Like, why won't he interview?
And if I'm not mistaken, he's already interviewed for some OC jobs, right?
He interviewed for the Bucks. I believe he's interviewed. If he hasn't already, he's going to interview for the Chargers. He interviewed for the Lions. Yeah, quite a few.
That's kind of interesting because my initial thought was maybe he was holding out for a head coaching spot. But to put it out there that you want to interview with him and you have to convince him is telling, that kind of plays into what I was talking about. Maybe that's the case. Maybe he feels like he would be more a puppet here and wouldn't have as much say as he wanted to have.
Maybe.
I don't know,
but they
Joe.
are saying that you full autonomy to the offensive coordinator.
They are. I feel like, to me, this is an attractive job. And I might be a little biased, for obvious reasons. I feel like it's an attractive job when you talk about what has been accomplished over the last couple of seasons and the talent that you have. But I think it does raise a question when you think about, some of the things you just presented. You don't know what Lane's going to be. Saquon's a little bit older. But we still have Tank here for the most part. But we still have Tank under control for another year, right?
Yeah, he's here. Yep.
So, I mean, there's that. You have a solid offensive line that I feel like once they get healthier, they'll be better.
They should be better. But we don't know what Lane's future is. I mean, he's getting up there.
I think if I had to guess, just looking at the landscape of the jobs that are available now and the job that we are presenting, a lot of the other coordinators are looking at the younger quarterbacks, more impressionable quarterbacks.
Sure.
Maybe that's the case.
And the other thing, and I'm sure someone's going to tell me today, Joe, don't forget, Shane Steichen parlayed the Eagles into a head coaching job, and Kellen Moore parlayed the Eagles to a head coach job. That is possible, right? I actually look at this job as high risk, high reward. The reward is super high, right? We've seen this Eagles group go win a Super Bowl. So maybe if coached better, they could do a good job and get back to a Super Bowl next year. That is on the table. But there's also like the Kevin Patullo thing. If I'm a coordinator, I'm looking at what happened here this past year. I believe the guy was scapegoated. We all know what happened, with the fan base in this guy. Like, do I want to come here and if we're not a top 5 offense, everyone hates me? I'm like, I can go somewhere else.
Being hated, that would not be a deterrent for me as much as being scapegoated. Like being hated, that's a part of the job. That's a part of the job.
It is. But it feels like it's not an easy.
It's not.
It's not an easy job.
It's not. It's not, and everybody's not built for it. But I think, especially this year, Kevin Patullo got a lot of heat because he was the newest face in town. Mm-hmm. And you're coming off of Kellen Moore last year, who started off a little rocky. And then as the season progressed, we all know the story to that ending. But he adjusted. And I think that was one of the things that he did extremely well. He saw what he had, he saw what he was working with, and he adjusted accordingly to that. I still feel like this is an attractive job, Joe. When you talk about being here in this city and what this team has accomplished thus far and could potentially accomplish again, I think I would probably jump at this job if I was an OC.
Were you interviewed?
No, they ain't. Man, listen, I tell you what, I already get enough heat from y'all on the radio. I would not last long because I would
built for this, Hugh Douglas.
No, I would. I'm built for it, but I'm telling you, throwing, doing some of the stuff that happened to Buddy. Yeah, y'all, I'd have been running down the street trying to catch.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good for anybody.